Okay.
I'll let you know when it goes live.
She's told me it's gone live.
Okay. Yes. Yes, it's live now. Good evening, everybody. If there's anyone out there watching this live broadcast with Reverend Les Isaac and Louise Isaac, who are going to be talking to us all things to do with marriage. I'm really excited about speaking to them. I promised to speak to them last year and it never happened. So it's now happening this year, today, and it's partly because they've got a marriage preparation course taking place this Saturday, but they will explain more about it. Let me just introduce myself first before I go on to Reverend Les and Louise. My name's Marcia Dixon. I love Facebook. Well, I'm always on Facebook, causing controversy. I try. But I'm also been in media a long time. I'm editor of Keep the Faith magazine. Reverend Isaac wrote our Christmas message for the edition gone, which I'm going to put up because it's got, can't see it, can you? Anyway, I'm trying to put it up. And it's got Emmanuel Sukwa, who was on the front cover. And he apparently knows Les. They used to go to the same church. He's a child of your church, right? Right, Les?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, that's enough of me because I don't really like talking about myself. I'm here to interview Les. So let's get back. Let's start talking to Reverend Les and Louise Isaac. So do the two of you want to introduce yourself to the Facebook, the two people that are watching at the moment, but I'm sure there'll be lots more.
Hey, well, good evening. My name is Les, and I'm married to this wonderful woman here.
Okay. Okay, Les is going to do all the talking. Normally, it's the women who do all the talking. That's what I noticed when I see black couples on TV. But Les is doing the talking here. So, Louise, can you tell us how long you've been, the two of you have been married?
Yeah, we've been married for nearly 43 years.
Oh, wow. That's an achievement in this day and age.
Indeed. Some would say more than a life sentence, but hey.
I'm sure it hasn't been. I'm sure it's all been fun.
No, it hasn't all been fun, but we're still together, thank God.
Okay, praise the Lord, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. That somebody who's married to a minister saying it's not really, I'm joking. So I'm sure a lot of people would love to know, how did you both meet?
Well, I went to a church. Louise grew up in Courtship, and I went to church to meet a school friend, an old school friend, to tell him that I became a Christian. And when I went to his church, to visit his church, I saw this, this young girl in the 5th form of school, secondary school. And I looked over and I saw her and my heart began to beat.
Ooh.
And I knew it was... Huh?
2 times? Quick.
Well, I don't know, but it began to beat. And then it was interesting. I saw my friend. And then I went back there again on another occasion. And the bishop was saying, look, greet each other with a holy kiss, but I knew I couldn't give her no holy kiss because I knew it was deep. This was deep. So that's how we met at a church in Kentish Town.
Okay, so it was love at first sight for you.
Well, not really. I knew that I liked her, but when I became a Christian, I said, look, Lord, this was my prayer. I said, look, Lord, I haven't come to church looking for any sort of girls. I just want to get to know you. And I just sort of pushed it to one side. But when I went back again and I saw her, I could say yes, pleasantly, mildly blown away.
Okay. And what about you, Louise?
How did I meet him?
No, we know how you met. How did you feel when you first? How did you first encounter each other? Because obviously Les saw you and his heart started beating fast. What about for you? Did you see him? Were there sparks there? Did your eyes lock or?
There weren't sparks. The guy that Les was supposed to meet was a very good friend of mine.
Okay.
So that's how we met. When I did meet him, he seemed like a nice person. he loved the Lord, and that's what struck me about him most. He really loved the Lord, and he had shiny eyes.
Okay, and you did look good as well. Did your heart beat fast when you saw him?
No.
Okay.
I thought I need to weigh this one up. I need to see how he behaves.
Oh right, okay. So I mean, these days there's a lot of questions about dating and courting and all that kind of stuff. So how did your relationship progress from him having bright eyes, shiny eyes, and his heart Les, your heart going boom, 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 to you being an item and then eventually getting married?
Well, I thought he was a nice person, but as I said, I had to weigh him up. I had to just see how he behaved amongst the other young people, because in those days, all the young people used to move around quite a lot, and there were some rather flirtatious young men and young women, and I didn't like that. I just thought it was just so ungodly, you know.
Okay.
And I thought, let me see how he behaves in the company of others, and that's what I watched for a little while. But got to know him with a friend of ours, and he was. My perception was that he was genuinely in love with Jesus.
Okay.
And that was our connection, really. That I was actually moving in the realm of wanting to really know the Lord, and so our conversations were very much around, how we pursue God.
Okay.
That sounds super religious. Sorry?
Like the God in him, the Holy
Spirit.
Okay.
Absolutely. That sounds super religious, but actually that was my heart. That really was my heart, that I didn't want anybody. In fact, I wasn't even thinking about marriage or hooking up with anyone at all. Because when I first became a Christian, I remember the day after I became a Christian saying to God, Lord, I don't even want marriage unless you put it on my blueprint for me. So I wasn't looking for anybody.
Okay.
So when he actually said he wanted to marry me, I was very surprised. I was, yeah.
What's happening then?
I thought he was a nice person, very nice person. And I thought, well, he moves in the circles with lots of other young women, and I'm sure one day he'll marry one of them.
Okay. And it was kind of like out of the blue. So wasn't you going out? What was happening?
Well, you see, for me, I'd become a Christian, and look, I was just totally sold out for God, because for me it was something powerful, dynamic. It was, for me, the commence of an adventure. Me being in church, serving Jesus, there was a lot of issues going on in my mind, because I was a Rasta, I was into Black Power, Black Panther, and all these kind of things. So when I came into church, it was a miracle coming to church and serving, this white man God. It was a big thing. So I wasn't really interested in any young women or anything like that. I just wanted to know what it was I got into. Okay. But it was interesting. We went to a convention in Aylesbury, and I went with my friends. I went with a couple of guys, and we went out lunchtime, break time, and we had a conversation. I think it was 3 of us. And when I went home, yes, including Louise, and when I went home, I reflected on the day. I still remember the sermon that the late Bishop Bell preached. He preached on Ezekiel and the valley of the dry bone. I still remember it. It was a powerful sermon. And when I went home, I said, and I was reflecting on all of that. And I thought, oh, this young lady, Louise, it's somebody like that I'd like to marry one day.
Oh, okay. Because
we chatted, we had some very intelligent conversation. It was really good. And I just thought, yeah. And it was out of that context that, something came about. So
it was kind of quite spiritual then, you're coming together.
Yeah, I think it was. Then I went off to university, and I told him that, because he was coming to the church I was in, Kentish Town. I told him, well, I'm going off to university in September. So he said, oh, that's nice. So he said he'd visit me, which I thought was nice, because I was going somewhere and I was going to be by myself. So he and his friend came up and saw me a few times, and so we got to know each other a little bit better. And it was in that place, about the end of the first year, that he sort of generally in conversation said, I'd like to marry you one day.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So that was the proposal.
Yes, up to now he hasn't done it properly.
That's funny.
Listen, I bought you an expensive meal that evening. I thought, well, I did the whole business, but there you go.
Okay. All right. So that was the proposal. Did you say yes straight away?
Well, I felt that it was right. So I said, what did I say? Ditto?
No, you said
Like
likewise.
Oh, God.
Likewise, she said. And I thought, I nearly died saying it. And she just said, likewise.
It's too funny.
So,
I like the proposals now.
that's right. So at the end of so we had 2 more years when I was away to get to know each other, and we sort of. So he came up occasionally, and we spent time together. Yeah.
So it was very serious then. So how old were you both when you actually got married?
24, 23 and a half.
Oh, right. Okay. So you're similar ages. Okay.
Yeah. 23. Yeah, 24 and 23. For 18 months. Yeah.
And sort of like during that time of courtship, what would you say that you kind of did it prepare you for what marriage was actually like, do you think?
No.
Okay.
In fact, we had our 2 pastors, bless them, they asked to see us. One of them basically said, be the best friends you can to one another, if I recall. And the other one said, don't use contraception, have as many babies as will be allowed. And that's the end of that.
That was your premarital counselling?
That was our premarital counselling.
Oh,
we looked away and went, okay.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah,
so, okay, so you had 2 years, then you got married. People can see the picture of you on your wedding day on my Facebook page, because I did post it. You both look very lovely. So when you got married, did it live up to your expectation?
Well, I thought it was hard work in terms of, but before we got married, I remember her father driving us home, and I said to her, listen, I hope I'll only have to do this once in my lifetime, because it was stressful. It took a lot. And I thought, mate, this is a one-time event, you know? But I think for me, well, for both of us, because I grew up in a single-parent family, and I remember making a vow to myself, because it was so painful and traumatic, that if ever I got married, if ever I have children, I would never want to leave my wife. So for me, it was a final thing. This was it. This was a done deal. And I suppose because we're coming from, Louise grew up with both parents, and we, 2 different upbringings. And so I think there was a lot of adjustments, and we weren't properly prepared for that marriage. We're 2 good people. We knew that we loved each other, but we weren't prepared. And that's probably why we're so passionate about people being prepared for this journey now and for many years.
Okay. So how would you describe the first 5 years of your marriage? Because, people from the outside looking in, I'm a single woman. So, when you see a couple get married, you think, yeah, great for them, honeymoon period, all of that kind of stuff, maybe children come in. But, when people talk, they say that sometimes the reality is not so honeymoony. So it would be great to hear your experience of those first 5 years.
Well, it wasn't, the honeymoon ended. Quite definitely ended within the first year or so. And I describe it, the journey in those first few years as very steep undulations, up, wonderful, and then down, and then up, and then down. So when we had good times, they were great. But when we had difficult times, they were extremely difficult. And the problem was that we didn't know whether or not it was normal. And there were times when I thought, right, we're on the road to divorce now.
Oh, is
it's
it?
So bad. Yeah, because I felt so emotionally, I felt so bad about what was going on, what was happening between us. So disconnected sometimes. And we didn't know how to do things. And I just thought, this isn't going to work. But we got through, and then we went up again, and then there were times when we went right down again.
But what was, I mean, what was the down, what caused the because you're going down, it's not even like.
It was like misunderstanding. It was like just being on the wrong page about things, just being very different people. As young as we were very different people, our backgrounds, our expectations of each other, all of those things were very, very different. And it was like cogs scraping against each other at times, and feeling, I'm quite an emotional person, so often I felt overwhelmed that this was just so badly wrong, so, you know, and I felt like I was doing things wrong, and we weren't connecting at times, and so on and so forth, you know. But then there were times when it was great, you know. We just, yeah.
I think it was expectation, or expectations and perception, and because we weren't properly prepared for that, it became difficult. So, for instance, you know, Louise grew up in a home where her dad would fix everything. Mum would say, this needs to be done, and he would just put on his overall and do it. She would tell me, huh?
It sounds great.
She said to me, Les, do that, and 2 weeks later, 4 weeks, he's still there. You know, I remember once, you know, I had to paint the outside of the house, and my attitude is, look, you know, get the painter to come in. I'm not a painter, let the painter do it. But, you know, we're trying to save money. And then she said to me, look, if you don't paint the house, I'm getting up on the ladder and I'm going to paint it. Now, she was 4 months pregnant.
No, I was about 8 months pregnant, so it was very obvious. Very obvious. I said, well, I will go and paint it myself.
And the thoughts of my neighbours seeing my wife on the ladder, that spurred me into action.
So it wasn't the fact that I was going on the ladder, it was the fact that the neighbours would see him. You see?
Shame. It wouldn't feel shame.
Yeah. That's it.
So it was those things, but, you know, there were expectations, and, you know, there were all sort of things happen then in terms of life changing. I was going into ministry also, and I was traveling. There was all sorts of things which, had we been sat down and, you know, talk these things through, tick these things off, those expectations would have been far more managed.
Yeah, and even the whole business of communication, how we communicate with one another. Thank God, we've never shouted at each other.
Oh,
the only time I shout at Les is if he's upstairs and I'm downstairs.
Okay.
But we've never been a shouting household. Okay. And never disrespectful. So I think that has placed us in a good place in terms of that beginning part. We would do silence, I suppose, more than anything.
Okay.
And sort of stuff going on inside.
So what's the longest that your silence towards each other has ever lasted?
You see, even that, you know, if we had talked about it earlier, because it would have felt better, because when he went into silence, I never knew when he was going to come out. And that made it worse for me, because I thought, well, okay, we've fallen out now. When's he going to get over it? When are we going to talk? You know?
So how long did it last? Half a day, a day?
Oh, no, a few days.
Yeah, but I think for me, it was about being very selective in my words, because once you spoke something, you could never retrieve it. And so if I was annoyed or upset about something, I'd need to calm down, I need to process it, I need to choose my words so that I'm not saying something that's going to hurt her, or I'm going to be regretful about it. So those were key things for me. And the fact that, look, I'm a Christian, I can't be vindictive, I can't hurt her, you know, I am supposed to love, I am supposed to look after her, you know. So I think all of these things was playing. So I'd rather just for a few days hold fire, and then we'll sit down and then we'll talk. And the moment we talk, we're going back up again.
You both sound like you were very respectful of each other. The fact that you didn't shout, the fact that you were quite concerned about your words. I mean, Louise, when you had your silent moments, was that because you didn't want to say anything out of turn as well?
Well, I didn't have silent moments in the same way, really. The place we eventually got to was having a conversation about those times of conflict and difficulty, in which I said to Les, okay, I appreciate that you don't want to say anything in anger and so on and so on, but tell me, when are we going to speak? So tell me, in 2 days' time, we'll meet and we'll talk. And that, for me, when we finally got to that place, that made everything so much better. Because in those 2 days of silence, I'm thinking, okay, well, we'll soon be over. This marriage will soon be over.
You could see Jordan. Okay. So, obviously, you know, you're two busy people. You've got your career. You're a teacher. Les was in ministry. You were a pastor's wife. You had your family. How did you manage the family, work, church life, ministry balance?
Well, we didn't have any children for 4 years. So Jake didn't come along for 4 years, deliberately so, because there was a lot going on. But when children were on the scene, it was basically division of labour, if you like, which was quite normal. I mean, you've got young children; they need to sleep, but they can't be in and out and up and down in the same way. So in many ways, I just sort of we divided our roles and we supported each other in what we needed to do. Sometimes it was a bit excessive because the church he was in used to, send him away for a month at a time, which was ridiculous. So I remember when Jake was 8 months old, he went off to Nigeria, and they would never send him away for less than a month if it was, to another continent. And so when he came back, Jake was 9-10 months, which was not nice. And it felt like sometimes I was a single mother with the times that he went away. But, I understood, but I didn't like it.
Okay.
But we did life, and we got through. Yeah.
But I must say, in those days, there wasn't Facebook or social media.
Yeah.
And it took me, it depends where I was in the east of Nigeria, and it took me, traveling to get to a place where I could phone her. So it was quite difficult. And then I was traveling all over the country, Nigeria, Ghana, and it was tricky. Then going to New Zealand, it's a whole month. So, it was part of it. And I think that if I had it over again, I'd do it differently. But now, we're traveling together. Everywhere I go, Louise is with me, So it was a season, and I remember our children was really upset about it. And I took Jake on a mission. We were intentional about that mission trip, so he could see what Daddy does, and he appreciated. And the next time when I was going away, he said to his sister, "Look, Daddy's doing the Lord's work." And she said, "Well, I hope he takes me with him to do the Lord's work as well." So I took her to a mission on a mission trip to the former East Germany, so that she could spend a week with me, and Jake couldn't come, so that we could, just see what Daddy was up to.
Wow! So you was always traveling then? Sounds like you've travelled the world.
It was traveling quite a bit. But the other thing was, in terms of ministry, hospitality, we got very involved in hospitality, sort of opening our home for meals or for not sleepovers,
well, people staying with us.
People stayed at our home.
Yeah.
People who had difficulties would come and stay, and also, so as we grew in ministry, it became hospitality. It became supporting married couples. Would you believe? Even though we were sort of a bit shaky, I think what encouraged couples to come and talk to us was that we were open about the difficulties that we faced.
Okay.
And we were very, very open about talking about those things and suggesting ways that they could do things that would be better for them, or things that we did wrong that we would do differently. So we became quite open in terms of hospitality, but also sharing our thoughts, our feelings, our experiences
And vulnerability.
Yeah. And that I think that was the beginning of marriage support ministry.
Really.
Really.
How long ago was that then?
about 6 or 7 years into our marriage, I would have said.
Okay, so people look to you basically for.
Yeah, because we were, Les was the pastor and I was the pastor's wife, so automatically. But that wasn't because we were them, but rather because of our approach to life, I suppose.
And being sincere and being open and being transparent. Because I often say to people, listen, we're real humans. None of us are Jesus. None of us are in heaven yet. And we go through things, and that's what the church is there for, to support, to encourage, and to really help us walk with us through difficult times. So we weren't afraid of that. And we weren't afraid to let people come to our home and see how we live. So people would come sometimes for a week or 2 weeks. Students would stay with us. So, people saw the genuineness of who we were. We weren't pretend what we were in our home, we're outside as well.
Okay, can you give me an example of, don't have to go too much into detail because I don't want you to reveal too much of people's secrets, but can you give an example of maybe a couple who came and the kind of advice that you gave them that helped them to get there, and their marriage was in difficulty, and how you helped them to kind of get their marriage back on track?
I think it's interesting because we've seen over the years so many people. I go places and people say, "Oh, Les, thank you for helping me in my marriage." And I said, "Paul, I can't remember you. I'm really sorry." We've had people who husbands have been gambling, and the wife is feeling insecure. There's a lack of resources, and husbands wanted to help, and we've had to sit down, talk with them, reason with them, and they've been helped. We've had couples who, their flirtations happening in marriages, husband. And all sort of things. And we've had to sit down, I with the man, Louise with the woman, bring them back together. And there's been a wide range of different things that has come before us. And we've had to just share about our life, but listen to them and really be open and honest with them. We've met couples who, they've got married and, it's become very nasty and people have become aggressive. And we've had to just help them and walk them through those difficult times. So it's, there are many. But one of the things I have noticed over the years, 90% of the time, it's been the woman who have come to us and say, "Could you help my marriage, our marriage, their marriage?" They've come to us and said that, 90%. So when you see a woman don't come, you realize that perhaps that marriage is over.
Right.
It's usually the woman who comes, and then the man reluctantly comes. But when he comes, he finds it beneficial because we listen to him. We represent them. I spend time talking with them. We share about our lives to them, our struggles that we've had, our difficulties, and how we overcome these things.
Okay. So what would you say? I mean, like I said earlier, to be married for 43 years, the ups and the downs, the steep downs and the high ups, and you're still together. What are the things that have helped your marriage to last so long?
I think our faith has been an important part of that. Knowing God together and walking with God together. I describe ourselves as being a kingdom couple. We very much believe that Jesus is the center of our lives together, and we pray together, and we ask God to lead us and help us. And I think that is the pivotal point. That is the central part of how and why we continue to be together. We've had lots of struggles. We've had lots of difficulties, assaults, if you like. But for us, those experiences have drawn us closer together. For some people, when they experience hardship, they come apart. But our hardships have actually drawn us closer together. Even sickness and all sorts of difficulties we've been through on our journey. But I think that we've really they've all helped to solidify our relationship and
Okay.
help us in that
Do
way.
you, I mean, when you were going through those periods where when Les wasn't talking to you, did you still pray together?
At the beginning,
no, because it was different. We prayed,
Okay.
but you got to be, because you see, the moment you get before Jesus, you can't go any further, because one of the things about prayer is confession and being open with God. You see, so obviously we did, but God, for me, God understood that it was important for us to work this thing through, because if we'd come and pray together, that'd be pretense. That wouldn't be transparent before God.
Okay.
You know, forgive us our trespasses as those who forget, as you forgive us our trespasses. Now, it was really interesting because when we got married, we lived in Wembley, and I was pastoring the church in South London, Southeast London. And we had to leave the home on time. And I just loved to be early and on time. And when we got married, I'm there ready in the car. And I tell you what, I'm there in the car ready to go. Engine is on. Louise is not there. And so I'm speaking in tongues, okay, because I could feel the pressure. and I'm there, and in the car, so we're not talking now, but round about halfway in the journey, I've suddenly remembered that I've got to take communion. And, right? And there's a part in communion that says, if someone's trespassed against you, forgive them or go to them. So what am I going to do? Leave the communion table, walk to the congregation tomorrow and say, I forgive you, girl. Right?
You did it in the car.
Yeah. So I did it in the car, sort myself out, asked the Lord to forgive me for my vexation. But we laughed about these things because, being a Christian challenges you about your action, about your behavior. And that really, for me, starts in our marriage. You know what I mean? If I'm hypocritical, if I'm treating her bad, saying wrong things in the home, and then outside in the church, projecting something else, man, that's hypocrisy.
Okay. I think another thing that's really helped us and kept us is, and we talk about communication, but actually the context in which we live is one in which I feel very cared for, that he really cares for me. And I think that is generally the context in which we live. We feel we care for each other. And he's very kind to me and very loving towards me. Even when he's upset with me, he's still caring and loving and very generous. And I've learnt those qualities as well from him. Okay. And I think we've learnt from each other, and we've grown together, and we've grown through each other.
So could you treat me with something special for those things?
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like the two of you, you love each other, and you're really not trying hard, but you are living out your faith and living out your faith in your marriage, and treating each other as Christ has called us to treat each other, which is really, really beautiful, with the added thing that you are actually married to each other. So you said you've been doing helping couples since the sixth, can't even pronounce it properly, year of your marriage, and you've gone on to do marriage courses, premarital counselling courses, and marriage enrichment courses. What kind of inspired you to move into that and actually kind of regularly hold events for people who you don't know, but you feel that you're able to share something to help them build strong marriages?
I think over the years, we didn't, when we first started it, we weren't sort of, let's support this couple. It just morphed, it developed. And over the years, we've seen and heard of the similar cases again and again and again. The issues are very similar that we've dealt with over the years. And so much of what's in the courses are to do with the issues that we have experienced and talked people through over the years. So on the whole, I developed the training course because I've got a background in training. And I try to incorporate things that ring bells with people, ring bells for married people, things that they have experienced in their marriage, which they've gotten over or which they're still bucking their toe against, you know. Okay. So the courses are very reality orientated. They're very, very much based on what people have experienced, what people are sometimes going through at the point at which they come on the courses. And that's the helpful bit. The people think, oh yeah. And it's almost as if we give them another way of looking at it. And not just another way of looking at it, but a way of moving forward out and on into a better relationship as a result.
But I also think that one of the things that we've highlighted over the years is that actually you develop a friendship first in your relationship with someone, and then that develops into love and then commitment with marriage. But you still have that friendship on the journey. Good friends. Now, it's really interesting because when we do our courses, it's not just Louise and I stand up and talk to people. We have discussions, men with men, women with women, couples together with other couples, and people recognize that there are things that are normal, right, that every couple goes through, and there are things that are quite distinctively related to them. But many other couples somewhere else in the country or in their church are going through the same thing. And it really helps people to understand, hey, this is normal. We're doing life together, and there will be challenges in doing life. And so we've got to develop the mechanism to cope with them, to respond to them, to move on and leave them behind. And what we say to people, it is this, hey, are we talking the way we feel? Are we talking about how we feel? Are we talking about our pains? And as we talk about them, we realize that, hey, my action is hurting my friend, my best friend. I don't want to hurt my best friend. I want to encourage my best friend. And then from there, we just go on. So for me, it was important for us just to drill down to help people what is normal, what are challenges, and how to respond to them in a very powerful way.
So what kind of things do you cover? Because you've got your course coming up. You've got a course coming up this Saturday. So what kind of, it's a premarital course, right? This Saturday. Right. So what kind of things would you be covering?
We cover most of what would go in a marriage preparation course, with a sort of an extra element, if you like. So we talk about what we've called the 5 foundation stones of marriage. Basically, it's the idea that marriage is a building, and you need some certain stones in the foundation to hold the building up, and you've got to keep those stones in good condition. And as Les said, they are friendship, trust, love, commitment, and something else. If you come on the course, you'll find out. And there's humility. Humility is absolutely essential. We regard humility, if you like, as the mortar that keeps the stones together. We found that whenever a couple's coming apart, humility is one of the first things to disappear. One or other have lost their sense of humility, no submission to each other, no submission to talking about things and so on. So humility is really important. So we start with the 5 foundation stones, and then we talk about communication. We talk about needs, the husband's wife needs in marriage, and the wife's needs in marriage. We talk about culture, a really important one. Very often people don't realize how much our background culture has made us who we are, and therefore determines our expectations of each other. And when some of those expectations are not met, it's that person's fault, rather than recognizing it's something about the way that I've been put together.
Yeah. Okay.
That we need to begin to address. So that thinking about culture underpins a lot of the elements of the course that we do both in the marriage prep and in the other courses as well.
And I think that, you know, the biggest one out of the 5 for us was trust.
Yeah.
Trust
as a foundation stone.
And trust is the one that, you know, it's the hardest one to sort of.
If it's broken, if it's undermined, it's the hardest to rebuild.
Yes,
it can be, but it can be re-established, but it's the hardest when you've lost trust. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to sort of like touch a little bit on culture, and then kind of, you know, we're going to come to a close, because I know that, Louise, you're working on a book about mixed cultural or mixed marriages.
Intercultural marriages.
Intercultural marriages, that's the right phrase. Yeah. And it's quite interesting, Les should say that, because we live in an age where, you know, people of different cultures, not just in terms of like you and Les in terms of your background, but actually different cultures, different ethnicities, different races are coming together, and your book is going to be touching on that. So do you want to give us a little hint of the kind of things that book will be touching on, because it's kind of quite needed?
Yeah, it's more than touching on. It looks at it in quite a bit of depth. Just the fact that very often we think that because we have the same color skin, that culturally we're the same, and we're not. Les and I culturally have come from 2 different places, and a lot of those things, a lot of those cultural things, were the problems were related to the problems that we had at the beginning.
I thought you was going to say the problem that Les had.
Okay, explain a little bit.
The book tries to explain how we come from different places, not just the surface culture stuff, but the deep culture things of our attitudes, beliefs, our values. We come from different places. And some of those things we need to explicitly talk about and examine to decide how we want to do our marriage in relation to those things. And so it's about putting those things on the table, talking them out, deciding how much of his culture we want in our marriage, how much of mine we want to consciously include in our marriage. So for example, this whole business of generosity. Generosity is a value that Les has grown up with. His mother was very generous with her time, and she used to foster children, and as a family they used to be very much together, and so a very open family. And I thought, I like that. And so that's how we've begun to be much more open and hospitable in our marriage together. Whereas I had come from a very different upbringing in that regard, in terms of openness. We were quite a closed family by comparison. So it's those sorts of comparisons and those sorts of decisions about how we want to go forward, how we want to do our marriage and family life, that I start to examine in the book, to get people to think about how they want to do life.
But it was interesting because I was born in the Caribbean, and I still have a strong Caribbean culture and value, right? Louise was born in Hampstead, you know.
Hampstead.
In England, sorry, London. And, you know, we came together. So culturally, you know, expectation was different again, you know, the way we thought or did things. It was completely different. Even now, when I go to the Caribbean, it's interesting. I said, look, man, I'd love to live in the Caribbean. She said, well, carry on, my friend. You know?
I'm sure she does it very respectfully.
Yeah, she does. She does.
With all humility.
And when I go to the Caribbean, she said, okay. And she said, this is your happy place. Because I just feel I'm at yard. I'm in yard. And, you know, I'm just there. And I'm greeting people the way they do it back home. And it's embarrassing her sometimes. But, you know, we're there. We're there. And I think culture, again, particularly the fact that, you know, our 2 children is married to Nigerians. And how does all of that blend? You see, so there's a lot that we've got to really unpack in terms of family tradition, expectations, you know, cultural norms. And so the book is about addressing some of this. And over the years, we've seen Asians and English and Caribbean and Asian and black and white. We've seen all of them come through And it's been really interesting when we have picked up on the issue of culture and expectation. It's come alive, and people come alive, and people say, look, thank you so much for that. You know, his parents want us to do that. Why should we do that? And, you know, we have to break it down and really help them to understand that they're not just getting married, but they're getting married into a community, you know? And so it's really important that we address those things.
Okay, so when's the book going to be coming out? When can we expect it?
Next year.
Okay, 2025. So hold that thought that Louise Isaac is coming out with a book about marriage, intercultural marriage. I think that's the phrase.
Yeah, don't forget me.
Oh, you're writing it together?
Well, it's Les Louise, you know.
Oh, okay, I thought Louise was writing it by herself. Sorry. Right, okay. Last two questions. So you've told us about your marriage. You told us about why you feel that marriage courses are important. If people watch this video or watch this interview and feel, you know what, I could do with Louise and Les, you know, giving me some marital advice, can they get hold of you? How accessible you are? When's your next marriage course? You know, can they sign up for it? I know you got one, but that's for the little youngsters on Saturday, the ones that are just starting off they ain't even married yet. They're just going to be having a premarital just to make sure that they should be walking down the aisle with each other. But what about the those that are already in it?
We've got a marriage enrichment course that we're doing on the 8th of June.
Okay.
In South London, that people of any length of marriage would benefit from. It's called Refresh, and that's exactly what it's about. It's about refreshing, looking again, changing, tweaking, making things better to keep going on the marriage journey. So that's the 8th of June this year.
And this one, it's on the 3rd of February. Can you tell us a little bit more how people can access the course, how they can register, sign up? Because it's this Saturday, the Eventbrite site is now down, but if anyone's interested, they can email us, and I'm sure we could accommodate them on the course. It's a Saturday and Sunday. It's a weekend course. We used to have it just on a Saturday over a number of weeks, but because to be able to enable people from other parts of the country to join, we've done it as a in-person course over Saturday and Sunday. So 9 to 5 Saturday, 9 to 5 on Sunday. It's in South London in Morden. The details of where it is and so forth are still up on the Eventbrite site, although you can't actually book on via that. But we'll give you an email address that people can make contact. Okay.
Yeah. So all the details are on the site, but if you're interested in coming on Saturday, then you'll need to email us.
Okay. All right. I think I'm going to wrap up. Are there any last words that you want to share with people about marriage, about love, about finding love, about Valentine's Day coming up? Whatever you want to share.
I think it's really important that people are prepared for marriage. Marriage is not a walk in the park. It's an adventure. And
we have an opponent.
We have to prepare ourselves for it, and we need to be ready for it. It's not about seeing someone looking good, shiny eye, beautiful hair, and thinking that's it. It's more than that. And we want to just encourage people that, you know, marriage is not just a walk in the park. It can be, and it will be a challenge, but when you find the right person, it's a great journey, okay? And particularly for people, I've met a lot of people say, I don't want to get married because I've come from a broken home. You don't have to be a victim of your own circumstances. My father left my mother and 5 children when I was 7. And I made a vow. I said to myself, when I was 7 years of age, if ever I get married, if ever I have a wife, if ever I have children, I would never want to leave them. And it's possible to make it. It's possible to walk. And as Louise said earlier on, I'm excited about Jesus. I'm excited that Jesus is with us. He gives us the grace, the strength, the courage to keep going. And so I want to encourage you, if you're going through something in your marriage, hey, meet with some other people and let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk to each other. Let's pray and let's be encouraged to keep going. One of the most encouraging things for me was when my daughter at the age of 9 or so said to me, when I grow up and I get married, I'm going to marry a man like you. And I thought, wow, what was it? What is it that she's seen? And I believe that what she saw, she was looking at the way I treated her mother, my commitment and responsibility in the home, my consistency in the family. I was somebody that she came to the conclusion at that age that man, if he's like my dad, he'll make me a happy and a good woman. And so I want to encourage you. It's great, and go for it if you're ready.
Okay. And Louise?
I think I'm glad that I have Jesus in our relationship, because we have an opponent. But I think scripture says, greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. And we can achieve a good marriage. There's a saying that I coined, which said, was it?
It's not the length of marriage.
Yes. Yeah. Being married for a long time, and the fact that you're married and the length of your marriage is no indicator of the quality of your marriage. Lots of people married and live in the same house in 2 different rooms. But we want length with quality and good health. And that's our prayer in terms of marriage ministry, that married people will be happy, but also healthy in their relationships, because that will perpetuate, that will provide an example to children who will also emulate a similar marriage experience. That's what I believe. Yeah.
Thank you both for giving us a little bit of an insight into your marriage and sharing the importance of counselling and how important it is that Jesus is at the centre of any Christian marriage for Christians. So thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.